Okay, so we are ready to do some more circuits development today. And we'll see how that kind of goes. So first, a few announcements and things like that while people join the stream. Mainly for like videos and things like that. But there's now Express AI t-shirts. You'll see it backwards because video is mirrored. So yeah, we are sponsoring the Builders Weekend event in Tokyo. So for the people who are in Tokyo, check out buildersweekend.co and maybe apply. I'm not sure if there's still space left. That might be getting a little full now, but there are people who are like canceling and things like that. So if you do sign up, there might be some empty space that you can join in on. And yeah, we'll be doing that and the Takeoff Tokyo event on the 8th and 9th of June. So if you are also in Tokyo and want to meet up, talk to us in our booth over there at Takeoff Tokyo, or watch the pitch contest, or probably talk to other startups that are doing cool things over here in Japan. Visit takeoff-tokyo.jp, I think. Takeoff Tokyo is takeoff-tokyo.com. So go to takeoff-tokyo.com. They're selling tickets to that right now. And yeah, we're going to be there. I'm going to do the pitch contest. It'd be my first time doing like a pitch contest in front of judges and things like that. I've done pitches before, but never in front of like judges. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how to do a pitch that is like, I don't know. Like I'm not kind of sure how they're going to evaluate everybody, because for me, like startup pitches are mainly about the idea, right? Like the most kind of compelling idea is probably the most valuable when it comes to like a pitch contest. But I think they're also going to be looking at, like, is the person talking smoothly? Are they, and yeah, does the deck make sense? Does it flow right? And those kind of things, which I'm not too big of a fan of, but we'll see how it goes. I might win, or maybe not. There's a lot of good startups over there, so we'll see. But we'll be doing that Takeoff Tokyo event. So if you're interested in it, feel free to sign up for that. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to do today. So essentially, there is a lot of interesting kind of papers coming out that are really deep diving on some of the things I've done on this stream, right? So there's been lots of interesting ones. So one of the things I think I've talked about previously on the stream is the idea of system 1 versus system 2 thinking. And then one of the things that we did in one of the previous streams with Technologic is we've done
system 1 versus system 2 thinking is actually kind of a neat way of thinking of GPT 3.5 versus GPT-4.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think GPT-4 is system 2, but it is more.
Yeah, certainly not. But it's like it's more capable, and it's also like 10x more expensive.
Yeah, that's true. But I still think, like for me, I kind of think of system 1 as like what happens when you just think through something. You're like relying on kind of your memory more than anything, and that's what's really like language modeling, right? Like they're kind of going through the weights, getting the words that are the most appropriate, and then they generate something, right? But then your system 2 has a chance to analyze what's going on and think about it, right? And I do think GPT-4 in particular is really good at thinking through things. So when you ask it to do and think step by step, and then give it a chance to not just generate the thing, but then also revise what it's doing. So you kind of give it a couple of chances. Now you have something that resembles system 2 thinking, right? You get a chance to like see something, then you can revise it, then you can apply logic, and then maybe revise it again, and then have your final result, which is very much a lot like that React, kind of framework. But yeah, there's a couple of papers. Let me bring them up. They're in the multitude of tabs, the sea of tabs that I have.
Yeah, I try to not have that. Like,
it's just
very diligent in
I know.
making fewer things.
It's just I have like a lot of things that I need to not forget, and for me, like, turns out that tabs are like the best way for me to not forget about things. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean I get them done, but I can see them. They can bother me until I get the energy to get them done. Let me see if I can find that paper. It is one of the tabs.
You kind of you can take them and put them on a list, and either they get scheduled for the next day or they get removed.
Yeah, I kind of wish I could get things done in a single day, but I'm definitely not capable of doing that. Like I have, what is this? Like all the X's are things that I'm like, I need to read this. I need to read this. This one in particular is one I want to try and implement today. So large language models as tool makers is an interesting one. And of course, I mean, that's kind of what the Python tool is, right? Like in general, when you think about it, it's the code is making a script that performs one of the tasks. Now, the kind of problem with it, or I guess the difference between this is that with this, that script is then stored like in a library that GPT 3.5 then uses. So in here, they're doing some interesting things with the split between GPT-4 and GPT 3.5. And since we now have access to GPT-4, it's something that I kind of want to play more with, because up until now we've just kind of like been stuck with 3.5. So that's this will be interesting. And then I just got like this thing I'm not so sure about. Like there's no source code, just like a README. Not even a README. I think they only have a license file actually out there. But it's an interesting, like this problem solving thing is the main kind of like thing that I think we're dealing with when it comes to the browser plugin.
Probably.
Some things work pretty well, but if you look at, for example, like Multion's Discord channel, there's a bunch of people sharing good cases and bad cases, and I kind of feel like not just Multion. I'm not trying to put shade on Div or anything like that, but I think a lot of the demos that you see on Twitter are people hard coding a tool, and things work really well when you hard code stuff, right? So, like for example, one of the things that I've noticed before is that even when using GPT-4, when I ask it to buy something on Amazon, one of the things it mistakenly does is it calls a function called search. There's no search function, right? Like you don't have like playwright.search to find a search bar in the page and then search using that, right? But it still does it anyway. It's really weird. It's kind of dumb. So I added what, right? Like just to see how far it can get, right? So like I added the search function, which like hard codes, if Amazon, then, enter the text that was provided in the 2-tab search text box, right? And then click enter, because essentially it would, even though I've seen it totally say, click on 2-tab search text box, fill in something onto the page, and then press the search button or press the enter key. I've seen it do that, but a lot of the times it seems to like want to use a function called search. So if I help it along a little bit by giving it something like a function called search, it just kind of it runs faster. Like it's able to get farther along because it just happened to make that up and it worked. So it's kind of that, but it doesn't get much farther after that. And yeah, but I guess like if I was super diligent and saying, okay, what is it trying, and then make functions that do the thing, for example, it sometimes makes up IDs of some sort, and the IDs have specific names that always show up. So for example, when doing anything related to Hacker News, it always hallucinates, right? Or it always kind of makes scripts pretending that the links in Hacker News have some sort of class on them, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's always the same. It's always the same. I don't know why it's so hard coded into it.
Maybe it had something like that at some point in time. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like I'm sure there's like Hacker News clients out there that probably do have those things so that they can be like, there's like a few like good looking Hacker News kind of websites out there, and I'm guessing it comes from one of those, right? And or that it happens that kind of clone is maybe open source and super popular, and so that particular class name is used in many websites out there, and the actual like code that you would have to use to find a link in Hacker News, because it's just a table, right? Like
yeah,
with no classes or anything like that, right? It's just 1999 HTML style, right? The probability distribution for TD, TD table, TH, T body, whatever that you have to actually do if you want to click on that link is really, really low. And then that open source project that probably had that class name is much higher, and then that gets sampled almost all the time. So I think that's kind of what it is. And that's another thing that's really easy to hard code, because it always comes out the same way. So if I hard code, when I see this class name, replace it with this, right? Then it would be like instantly able to browse all sorts of things on Hacker News. But I don't.
But then you could just hard code it to use like the API for it.
Yeah, exactly. Like just doing that, just hard coding like specific sites here and there for the Twitter feed is kind of, it's not something I want to do, and that's why, we don't have that many kind of things on Twitter, because I wanted to do something and I don't want to baby it into doing the thing. I want to, have an agent that is able to go from description and nothing else. It knows nothing about any web page out there. Is able to open up the web page, analyze the page's, structure, figure out what it needs to click, and then actually click it. Right. So that's what I want to do, and I won't be posting anything on Twitter showing that works unless that actually works. Right. So like the thing that I posted on Twitter where it read the receipt and got out the text, that wasn't me hard coding anything, right? Like it was, here's my Hugging Face agent, and I would run it, and it would have some sort of error of something I was missing in Xircuits, and then I would fix that. And then after I fixed all the things that it needed, it worked, right? I didn't program or hard code anything. So that's the bar that I want to kind of keep when working on these things. But anyway, this one, which is really, really new, and from the Allen Institute, which sometimes posts interesting stuff. Sometimes.
Yeah, Allen AI is kind of, they were around from before the deep learning craze.
Yeah, they've been like doing this stuff for a long time, and yeah, deep learning and like they were doing it before deep learning was a thing, and they kind of have a lot of kind of like classic AI know-how and maybe a little too philosophical things, but they also have really good stuff, right? So I'm for what they're doing here. Now, the interesting thing that they have here is this is a comparison of what they're proposing versus say, can, react, and reflection, which are currently like the three main things that you have in LangChain. All right, I'm pretty sure react and reflection are LangChain. Say, can, I'm not so sure about. But yeah, react gives the think action, which is pretty good. And I think that's really what kind of sparked the whole baby AGI and auto GPT thing in general. But what they're saying here is they're doing this dual process because the brain happens to have two processes. And then it makes me go, why not three, right? Like, like if you have two, then maybe three is more. Maybe you could argue that there's not just two in the brain, right? Like maybe you have more, maybe there's actually four because you have two hemispheres in your brain. But
maybe it's like 2 is one of those special numbers. It's like 0, 1, 2, 3 is already kind of a many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Though it is one.
But why not
number,
many?
yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing. I'm like, why not many? One interesting thing that is, or something that I think is interesting, is that the brain essentially has 6 layers. Essentially, the brain is actually just a flat sheet that is crumpled up into your skull, right? And of that flat sheet, if you then start counting things, there's like this pyramidical, like, or maybe not pyramidical, but yeah, it's like a pyramid structure that's about 6 like neuron levels deep, essentially. And then that's repeated across the entire sheet, essentially. As I understand from, what's the name of the guy who invented the Palm Pilot? The guy made a book way back in the day. And then a company that's been trying to do stuff for a long time, and they sometimes do stuff, but doesn't seem to help too much. But that number is 6, and makes you kind of wonder: is 6 a magic number? Is 3 worse?
It's 3 times 2. Why not 12?
Yeah.
12 is a good number.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you had 12, is like superhuman ability 12 layers, right? Who knows? But anyway. Part of the talk that I'm going to be giving on Friday, like the seminar that I'm going to be giving on Friday, I was going to talk about this System 1 and System 2 thing. And luckily, Karpathy also mentioned it in the build conference. I'm like, oh, wow, I know stuff, right? If Karpathy knows stuff, then I guess I know stuff too. And I've been thinking how to best incorporate it. It was actually, so in the toolkit, you'll notice that there is a critic agent. And I don't like the fact that they're called agents, but there is a critic agent. That really doesn't work very well. Like I'm disappointed in the critic agent's ability to do anything. Doesn't seem to want to do much. And I think that's down to like, I just need a better prompt for it. But
it's just every critic is lazy.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea there was that you would have your executor agent that would come up with, like its first thought of what it should do, and you take this action and you put it in here, right? And then the critic could then critique that action and update it. And I made the default prompt to say, like if there's nothing that can be improved with this action, just repeat it verbatim. But it really likes to say there's nothing that can be improved about this action. It looks perfect, right? But the idea was that it's like a System 2 type of thing, right? Like you have your initial idea, which is like what weighs more, a pound of feathers or a pound of rocks, right? Your System 1 might say, yeah, rocks are heavy, right? But then the critic comes in, analyzes what you're about to say, and then has another chance to look, oh, hold on a sec, right? A pound is a pound type of thing, and then maybe it changes its thing. That's the idea with the critic agent. That didn't work so well, so that's why I'm like interested in seeing how they did it, to see if there's something that I can do to improve my critic agent, or like maybe it's a different thing. You don't need critic agent, but something else. Apparently, it's really, really good at doing things like this Science World benchmark that they have. So I'm interested in doing that. Yeah, so that's one of the things I'm kind of looking for. And I think in here, did they have the prompts in the appendix?
If you have the prompts, that would be really good, because it's a lot of time it is really the prompts that make it or break it.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think there's prompts.
GPT-4 can handle bad prompts better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think with a decent enough prompt, you can get GPT 3.5 to do reasonably good things.
Yeah.
Like when I was originally doing the proof of concept for the browser thing, I was manually prompting it with the outputs.
Mm-hmm.
And the prompt was always kind of the same-ish, but I had to go through like 30 iterations of it until I had one that worked in most cases.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think this one has, I mean, okay, so it says that they have an overview of their prompting framework, which is something I think we'll maybe look at. One other thing is, remember how we did prologue in a stream? Does this not feel very prologue-y to you? Templates.
Well, that's not really prologue-y. It's more like those templates look very much like what we did for our tools in Technologic, where we kind of define a few things and then we give it a list of things that it can do with a tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The prologue thing was a little bit more intelligent, because there it could like establish known things in the database, and then kind of try to do things with that, like logic reasoning with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of feel like there might be something there, you know, like the reasoning ability of GPT-4 is amazing. But, you know, if it can use something else to give it better access to more reasoning things with, you know, less compute.
If it can do formal reasoning with prologue.
Yeah,
why
exactly.
not? I mean, that is during the game stream, I think. Became
that's where we used it, game stream, yeah.
And that produced some really, I'd say, promising results.
Yeah, exactly. It probably would be better. Like, it'd be better if it seemed to know that Python framework a little bit better.
It doesn't need to know the Python framework for it. It can do prologue like directly.
Yeah. So if we like had something that did prologue, that would work, I think. But anyway, this paper, which came from Microsoft, I think, or no, this is Google DeepMind. Yeah, DeepMind stuff, which is, you know, like seeing it, you're like, wow, you can write a paper about this stuff, which seems to be the way I feel about a lot of the language model papers, really. But, you know, it's good to have a paper about things. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not doing amazing work, because you know, they're actually measuring the stuff, right? So like that's really valuable. It's nice to know, okay, this is how it actually works versus what we typically do, which is like implement it in the stream and then figure out, you know, what it's like. But anyway, the good thing about this paper is it actually has the prompts in here, right? So there's the tool maker prompt, tool verifier prompt, the tool wrapper prompt, and then the dispatcher prompt.
Now, is that in the SwiftSage paper?
No, this is in the tool maker paper.
Ah, okay. Because I'm looking at the SwiftSage GitHub repository and trying to find prompts in there.
Yeah, I don't think it has. Let me look at what they're saying for 3.3, because they said in 3.3 they showcased that framework. Okay, there's the planning stage, and that's something where I kind of think, you know, like an optimizer could maybe be a thing, you know, like if you just said, write out the stages and the dependencies. And then after you have that, you just then, instead of using a language model to prioritize things, you just use an optimizer to like order the things. That could work perfectly fine. And maybe that eventually becomes what baby dog AGI is, because baby cat AGI does all that, but with language models. But anyway, so they have the planning stage where they plan based on the current state, very much like baby AGI's, you know, develop a task list type of thing. And they prompt it with a single prompt that includes a summarized version of the task description and action history, and ask the following 5 key questions. Q1, locate objects. Q2, track objects. 3, plan sub-goals. 4, track progress. 5, handle exceptions. Now, this is kind of similar to the things that we're kind of thinking in terms of the browser plugin, right? Like we want it to first, here's the things on the page. What, or I guess I've maybe, I think I said this in one of our meetings where we're like, we can have it output the page, and then we have one, you know, simple model that's like, what are the relevant things that we should keep?
Yeah. Right? What's even relevant to this?
Yeah. And then after that, we can extract that and then from there do the things. And I think that's what these questions do pretty well. So like if we have locate the things on the page that we need to use, right? And then this one, I'm not sure how that would work, but it could be a thing, right? Like we need to buy something.
So I'm looking at like the tasks that they have, and it reads very much like a
like a what's it called? A multi-user dungeon, like a MUD. Yeah.
Yeah. So like a text-based game.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have things like your task is to boil lead. For compounds without a boiling point, combusting the substance is also acceptable. First, focus on the substance, then take actions that will cause it to change its state and matter. And then it's like task name boil. And then it has a history. So that's like, and the first action was look around. The room is called the bathroom. In it you see the agent, a substance called air, a bathtub, turned off, and so on and so on.
Air. How do you see?
And then it has an inventory. And that's like an orange or something in its inventory. So it's very much like a game or some kind of game-ish thing.
Yeah, so it doesn't like I think apply for sure, but the idea of locating the things on the page, plan what we have to do, right? Then track the progress. I'm not sure how we do that on the page, but there, you know, we do have the task list, right? Like one was like click on the search, enter the mug, find the thing in the results, right? So something like that could be a thing.
I think it also should know what it has done so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, it shouldn't need to know what it has done so far. Ideally, it decides on every observation of its environment what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe whatever it has done is entirely irrelevant now.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one thing that's interesting about things is if it fails to do something, right? Like, so if it tried to do something like find the thing in the search results, but it's not in the search results, right? So like just avoiding the fact that sometimes it makes stuff up and then it's not in there and it kind of times out. So that's probably the more important issue. But let's say it's on the task where it has to add the thing to the shopping cart, but like maybe Amazon COJP has no Ember mugs, right? So it didn't find anything. And so then what can it do, right?
Yeah, it kind of should remember that it tried doing something, because it may try to search for things, and then it should know, well, I tried to search for that, and this is the result. It's like pointless. I didn't find anything. Should be a conclusion that it can come to.
Yeah. One interesting thing about the paper is that they use SentenceBERT, which we have in Vecto, so it could be that we use Vecto for this thing. And it is quite amazing, the result, like the high numbers that they have here, which is encouraging, I guess. And of course they're like, oh yeah, we're high ballers here. We got GPT-4, and they say GPT-4 all the time. But like if I were them, I'm like, yeah, use GPT-3, right? Like, how does it work when you use GPT-3? That's the main thing I'm more interested in.
Yeah.
Like, did they even try it? Who knows? But anyway, yeah, having a Swift and a Sage is kind of cool. I think having like a Swift and Sage actor here or agent would be kind of cool. And then also thinking of this tool maker. And the thing that I think I'm interested about the tool maker is that in here we're making a tool, right? So this is the Zybo bot, and we have the make tool, right, which did the OpenAI image create to do that faster than the image create that it comes with, right? So I kind of feel like the Hugging Face framework, which is pretty limited. That's the thing I don't like about it too much. But the tool thing here kind of fits with the way Hugging Face works, like the Hugging Face agent thing works.
Yeah.
Yeah. As in it can just create a function, give it the name, and it has a kind of fixed input and output thing, which is like, takes a prompt, returns a prompt, or not a prompt, but like some result string. And then once that the toolmaker has finished running, we could then go back init FHF agent again, but now with a different set of tools. And that could work maybe much better.
Yeah, maybe.
But doing that inside of Xircuits might be a little difficult, or at least kind of require a little bit of thinking about how to do it.
I think kind of maybe playing with the idea first and seeing like what kinds of tools does it come up with.
Mm-hmm.
So without having read the paper, just for like the idea of toolmaker alone. If you have an objective and we know that, well, we cannot solve that problem directly. We need tools to solve it. That means kind of the first thing that we do is decide on the tools that we are going to need.
Right.
And in order to decide on the tools that we're going to need, we need to decide on kind of what we are going to do. But that is a bit of a iterative process.
Right.
So I would probably try just prompting it out of a regular 3.5 kind of conversation.
Mm.
So
yeah, and that
maybe use 4 to get the initial kind of base prompt,
mm-hmm.
and then start with that. Okay, objective is that, and we want like what would you do, and what tools would you need for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then do this step-by-step thinking, break down the tasks to achieve the objective.
Oh, I remember I saw something recently about step-by-step.
Yeah, the step-by-step thinking, that's kind of like one of the few actually effective prompt things. Like in all the prompt voodoo, it keeps reappearing.
Yeah.
It was something about allowing it to get a world model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was so
let me
I can't remember the paper. Where was it? There's either a paper or an article that showed that you can make a better prompt than think step by step. You say think step by step, ensuring that you get the correct answer or something like that, or something along those lines. Which is turns out is kind of important because there exist textbook things, right, that kind of break things down step by step, but have problems in it on purpose, and then that kind of you can kind of see how that affects the probability distribution of things. But when you say ensure you get the correct answer, then everything's going to be focused on getting the right answer, ideally, right? And then kind of focuses the weights on not trying to trick the user or anything like that, or user or like test taker or something.
Yeah, the step-by-step thinking is kind of a chain of thought thing.
Yeah, like a chain of thought.
And the paper that I was thinking of is called "Large Language Models Are Zero-Shot Reasoners." And there is kind of this chain of thought thing. But by Googling for step-by-step, I found another interesting paper where they claim that their 770 million T5 model outperforms the 540 billion Palm model, using only 80% of the available data on the benchmark task. And it comes out of Google Cloud Research and the University of Washington.
Yeah, I think that's actually the Flan T5 paper, right? Or is it a different one?
No, it's distilling step by step.
Like I thought that was the Flan T5 paper.
Is it? I'm not sure. I have such a big backlog of things that I need to read. No, Flan doesn't show up in that even once.
5, step by step. Yeah, I read this one too. Oh, the purple links. Why don't I use Zotero more? Interesting. But anyway, the Flan T5 paper is something like that, right? That takes T5 and makes it better by just adding Flan. And it's pretty small and pretty good for its ability for reasoning. And I guess that would make sense for T5 because T5 is like, more of a it's not necessarily a language model, right? T5 had a bunch of tasks that it tried to do, the 5 tasks. So I could kind of see how that works. Yeah, that's interesting. There's data sets. And these T5 are these T5 different than who made the original T5 models?
It was Google, if I remember correctly.
No, I thought it was like Richard Socher or like Link. Not what wasn't it? Salesforce?
No idea.
Yeah. Pretty sure.
Interesting. There is multi-tool COT. GPT-3 can use multiple external tools with chain of thought prompting. Paper from 4 days ago.
Yeah, kind of a hot topic right now. I think this actually really started it all, right? Like the guys like Kojima-san or maybe Professor Kojima, I have no idea.
It's like that paper that I've just brought up. It's essentially the same thing that we kind of did at the beginning of the month for Technologic.
Right, exactly. Sometimes I'm like, man, are they watching this? I guess if you're in academia, you should watch our live streams. Then we can give you lots of cool ideas for writing papers. All you have to do is take our ideas and then do the actual work of writing the paper down, references and stuff.
Yeah,
that might work.
So
yeah, what do I want to do? There's a couple of things. So how important is the conversation and context going to be to the tool creator? Because one of the things that I kind of don't like about the baby AGI tools currently, I gotta refresh this thing, is that the prompt is just a string. And I kind of wonder what I want to do with that, because when we're doing things with Technologic, we're kind of using the conversation, right, and forking from it. So having having the conversation might be a better thing. The other thing I've thought about is I have seen reports that people are getting more interesting outputs from the completion models than the chat models. And the reasoning there is kind of obvious when you think about it, but the chat models have less entropy than the other one, like than the originals, right? Like the base model, as a language model, has more leeway in what it can produce, right? It can produce all sorts of stuff because it is not trained to chat, right? And then when you think about it that way, the chat models are kind of more constrained in what they do, and we kind of have to unconstrain them with our prompts, essentially. So one person was saying, like given that you give it enough context, right, to make it look like it's some sort of web page about this kind of stuff, they're getting better outputs there. And the interesting thing about that is that, well, that's just a string, and so that's kind of easier to do. But I have seen someone mention that in, I think, was it in the Baby AGI channel? I can't remember if it was the Baby AGI channel. Because someone mentioned that, and I thought that was kind of really interesting because, yeah, I kind of think it makes sense, right? Like it's less constrained. It's not fine-tuned. So as long as you can get it to be in the right place, it works better. So that's the interesting, for me, that was the interesting insight there. And yeah, I kind of wonder if I want to try it. Let me check. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Can I undo a delete? I'm not sure, but I can just not save it. Okay. Let me check if LLM prompt or LLM call was smart. Yeah, so if your model is set to GPT-3.5 Turbo, then it tries to make, like a message. But if it's Llama, okay, they threw away the original. So this used to be that it would use, it would either use ChatGPT or the generate endpoint. And I think they got rid of that. And I copied what they did. Like I'm trying to keep, well, I'm not doing it recently, but like the Baby AGI like project is kind of like changing a little bit. So I wanted to keep things close together, but now that's like changing so much. It's really hard to keep those things together. So I need to think of something else. But anyway, maybe I could try to introduce that and see what programs it generates. That might be interesting. Though I'm pretty sure it's not going to be better than GPT-4. Like it's probably going to be, it might be better than GPT 3.5, but not better than GPT-4 is my thoughts.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I have an interesting, yet another different paper that I kind of put a chain of thought into arXiv search and looked at what came out. It's quite interesting in the mathematical kind of approach. Because, so there's a guy, is he affiliated with anyone? Yeah, Singapore University of Technology and Design.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually two people. Ziki Jin and Wei Lu. Mm-hmm. I hope they didn't butcher the names too much. Anyway, they had the idea of using a table-based step-by-step prompt.
Step prompt. Interesting.
Yeah, let me share the link here.
So hard to get the links out of this.
Yeah, I've sent you the link on Slack too.
Okay. I just need to find my Slack.
So what they do is they have a table-based prompt where they kind of start the table just with the columns that it should have.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing it that way, you give it kind of a prompt to think about more things in its step, I guess.
I see. That is very smart.
Yeah. And it looks like for calculation-based things, this table approach wins out, more or less. So there's the arithmetic reasoning type in their tasks, the symbolic and the common sense one. And on average, because there are more... oh, no, wait, the first one is all arithmetic. Yeah, so in the arithmetic ones, they appear to be better on average. And they're using also not the chat-based thing, but the completion-based one.
Mm-hmm.
So they use the code and the text models. And yeah, on average, the code-based model wins out with their approach. I guess it kind of makes sense that it would be a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of thinking in terms of like the browser tool, because we kind of have that. It's kind of a table already, right? We have here's the XPath thing, here's the content of the thing, and then
could we do like a nested table thing? Do you think it would understand?
It's a good question if it would understand nested table. What I was kind of thinking was like, what if we added some empty columns and then just asked it to fill in the column, right? So like we could say a column, is this a relevant thing to the task, right? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Right? We just ask them fill in this column in this table, and then it would probably produce the original table plus its yes, no answers, and then therefore, like we could have should I click it or should I enter text in there or like text to enter or something like that, and then see
and
if
it produces a lot of tokens.
Probably, yeah. Though, I mean, I guess one like we don't have to do it all at once. We just do it one like, is it relevant? Yes, no, yes, no. Then we filter out the table to leave only the things that are relevant, and then like we could have action where it'd be like fill in or enter text or click on or something like that. And then we could have like a little order, right? Which one it would do first and which one would do second. So therefore, it's like entering this table instead of producing code. And that might be good. It might be bad. It might be really bad, but it might be good for an interesting reason, which is that when it's producing code, sometimes it will, kind of assume that it can use if statements and stuff like that, right? But if it's a table, then it's not doing if statements. It can't. It has to kind of think through things that way. So I know it seems an interesting thing to try really quick.
An interesting thing, if you look at what they do, so they also then check it with GPT 3.5, and their prompting method certainly produces significantly better results. Like on average, they get 27%, and with their best prompt, like their best table, they get 62.6. And they apparently do pretty well on the symbolic reasoning and common sense reasoning too. Like better than the regular chain of thought. But the regular chain of thought thing is let's think step by step.
Yeah.
I've usually used something slightly different.
Like what? You should write a paper about it.
It's literally like think step by step about what you're doing and how it's going to get there.
Yeah, and then just add in a way that yields the correct answer, and then you probably got a paper. Okay, what happens if we just do this with GPT-4? Although I think I've my technology is completely messed up. So, like, I have no idea how it got into the state. I don't know why
Yeah.
conversation ends up in templates. It may
I
be my fault.
the reason is calculator tool output. Do you have are you using my branch with tool support?
Yes.
Then it decided to just use use the calculator and yeah.
Okay. What if I set this?
The thing is that in the background it does a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That's why it's taking so long until you see something, because the tool support branch isn't to the point where it's properly showing how the tools are being used. And so what happens is that for the tool use, it sees this thing and it's like, okay, don't care. And then you get your output.
Okay, yeah, and it outputs a table.
Yeah, but before it used a calculator too. So it has that in its context.
I guess that's...
You probably so if you want to disable the tool use, you can comment out one line.
Yeah, but that's fine. I kind of want to do things in here anyway.
Okay. I think I'll leave you to it and maybe get to fixing Technologic instead.
That might be a good idea. I want to have conversations. I need to think of how I could have conversations in here. How to best make conversations in a way that's not too much work. So the interesting thing about the conversations is that right now you have a literal string, right? But a message, like the thing that chat completion takes is an array of objects that have role system, role user, role assistant, and then content, and then the content. So I kind of want to have a way to make a literal one of those. Is that might be better to have, might be really nice to have something like that. It is easy to make a component that will generate that. I'll close my door. And it'd be much harder to have a literal that does that. But maybe you don't really need a literal. So let's think things step by step and carefully in a way that can help us produce the correct answer. So in here, our prompt has variables. And that stuff could be important. I'm guessing it's just doing this. It's not really like formatting it. So I do have a format string, right? That takes the string and the args. So what I was kind of thinking is, what if we had a chat message format component? Let's see what it looks like. Let's get out of baby AGI. I don't think we want to do that. Also, someone needs to remind me to fix the Hugging Face thing so that we can deploy it. But anyway, let's in the toolkit. Let's go into that. And let's maybe do something interesting. Kind of getting a little big. Yeah, so these are to-dos that I want to do. And yeah, let's see. So if I had an XAI component that has something like, what do we want to call it? These things are called messages. Format message. Ready, format conversation. We'll see what I'm getting at here, but essentially it would take a system prompt in these are all going to be optional, right? So it would take a system prompt, a user prompt, an assistant prompt, maybe a faux assistant prompt, and the input prompt. Right? Then it would output a conversation, out messages, out arg of list. We can't go any further with the version that we're kind of targeting. Anyway, the execute of this thing would be something like, yeah, we have our conversation, which starts off as a list. Let me illustrate it really quick. What I'm kind of thinking. So, yeah, let me start a new conversation. So, what I'm thinking is something that I sometimes do in Technologic, which is, or I can say, you are Zybo, a helpful chat tool that can help people. Do I have it here? I've used it before in weather stuff. Helpful AI assistant, right? That can help users get information quickly. Okay. So we send that message, but we change it from role to system. Then I create a like a fake user message, right? Like, hi, Zybo. What is the weather today? And just to illustrate what would happen, right? Like, so if you just did this, what does ChatGPT say? Well, it's always going to say, I'm sorry, I don't have access to the weather, right? It's going to say something like that. If we give it a sec. Pretty sure it's going to do that. But this is the tool version, so it's kind of, yeah. So as a AI language model, I do not have access to tools or something like that. Okay, so let's wait for this to finish. Okay, so here, okay, just quickly, you have access to information gathering tools such as weather and stock price and stocks. Use a tool, output, tool, colon, well, we don't even need to do that. So that's the system message. We'll save that in place. Then the user is going to say, hey, what's the weather like today? Then I'm going to put, instead of the assistant saying this, I'm going to say tool, weather. No, I'll put, let me do the date thing. So it'd be kind of cool. Weather, stocks, and date. Okay. It's going to say tool, current date. Save that in place. We'll create a new message that says date tool output 2023 05/30. But this is not going to be the user. This is going to, I'm going to set this as the system, right? And then I can create a new thing. I'm going to pretend to be GPT-4 here and say tool weather. No. Let's put SFO or something, and then 2023 05/30. Right. Then we'll have another system message that says sunny with a chance of thunderstorms in the evening, something like that. I'll put tool output colon. Right. We have that, and I will change this to be assistant, and then this tool output to be the system message. And then if I just send it like this, it's going to say, hey, today the weather is sunny with a chance of thunderstorms, right? And if I ask it now, what is the weather like tomorrow? It's going to say tool, 2023 5/31, I guess. Let's send. So if this works right, it will say like tool, and it's going to ask for the weather tomorrow, essentially, expecting that the system message will then say what the weather is going to be like. Now, let's see how that works. Now, if this doesn't, like, I know it will work in general, but we are running on the tool version of Technologic, so there's like other things happening in the background. Yeah, GPT-4, you're kind of stupid. It's like, can you not understand the date that we have here? But like it's kind of smart. It knows that it needs to do date to find out the date. I guess it might be smart enough to know that, hey, this question could have been posted like in a week from the previous one. It has no timestamps to know for sure, right? So yeah, maybe I'm the stupid one and it's smart. Anyway, so tool output 2023-05-31. Set that to be a system message. And we save that. Then it's going to say tool weather SFO on that date. Yep. And it will say tool output sunny. No, let's just put partly cloudy. Partly cloudy. Save that. Send that as the system message. And if we send that, it will say the weather tomorrow is expected to be partly cloudy. All right. So I have a feeling that implementing agents with these conversations instead of saying you are something that does X, Y, and Z, and you have to do these things in this order, this stuff, it forgets. It's not really good at really understanding what you're saying here, right? And will sometimes forget and start making stuff up. But it has a really strong bias to be consistent. So if you are able to pretend that something exists, or like pretend that it knows how to do certain things and give it some examples, it will, in an effort to be self-consistent, just do exactly that, right? It has a really strong preference for imitating its previous messages. So it likes to imitate assistant messages way more than anything else, right? It's part of it why you don't have to say, like, respond like a pirate every single time. It knows from its previous conversations it was talking like a pirate. So in the next time you ask it, like, what's the weather like tomorrow? Do it like a pirate, right? It might be funny to try it really quick. So I can be like, let's say here, so it says weather and date. Typo is a helpful pirate AI assistant and will do things. And then say tool output. And then we can say, yeah, so if you just do it this way, right, it's going to say the weather is partly cloudy. It's completely ignored the fact that I said pirate. It has gotten it, right? But it's not going to do that because here, or actually, let's do it here. So if I say this, and then we rerun, let's cancel that. Let's rerun this one. Is it going to remember anything about the pirate? No, right? But if I modify it and say, matey, right? The weather today will be sunny with a chance of meaning. I don't know how to talk like a pirate. Yeah, but whatever. You just say this, right? Oh darn, I've like forked it, but darn, I think I forked it. But anyway, you get my point. It's going to try and be self-consistent. So if you just say like matey, whatever, then after that, it will forevermore pretend to be a pirate in that conversation. So I think we want to have like a format conversation. And then as you notice, I kind of used a lot of these, right? So I probably want an XAI component for join conversations that has conversation 1, which is a list, conversation 2, which is an inarg list, maybe conversation 3, and we'll just leave that as 3 for now. Well, in other places I've kind of used 5 quite often, but anyway. Then if we have a little execute, that just does we want to concat a bunch of lists, right? So in Python, to concat a list, I know how to do it in Scala. You just use like ++. A1, 2, B is equal to 3, 4, and C is equal to A plus B. Yeah, that just works. Yeah. So we have the ret, which is some list. Then if conversation self.conversation 1 value is not none, then ret equal to ret plus self.conversation 1 value, and same thing with everything else. 2 here and 3 here. And then this out conversation, then out arg of list, self out conversation value is equal to ret. So now we can kind of format conversations as much as we want. Now this format conversation, because I said format, it should probably take a dictionary of values, right? And I'm not sure what those are called other than predict. What did I call it in the concat string? I had format args. I have an arg of dict as the args. Okay, so essentially, let's do something that we don't often do, but I'm going to make a make message thing that has role and then the message returns dict return role message msg. I do believe that is the format. Let me double check that real quick. Yeah, role content, yes. So let's find that and not make that mistake. Okay, cool. So essentially what we want to do is do string.format. That's a thing. So if I format that with the empty thing, or if I say A is 1, that's that. But then if I have A, B, C, A, what did I do wrong there? Do this. Yes, okay. Yeah. Oh, Python. So intuitive. Sometimes. Okay, so what we need to do is system. So I'll put like system message is equal to self.make message system. Then we take system prompt format dot value format. Then we do self.args.value. And this only applies if self.system prompt.value is not none. No, we don't really have to type that, but I just want to make it super clear. And make sure that, like true and false kind of count, right? Just means that there's a better error message, even though it kind of doesn't make that much difference. And then what happens if I try to format something with none? Yeah, let's do it this way. I'll put local args. Let me call it something. Format args is equal to the empty dictionary if self.args.value is none, else self.args.value. That way, I can then just do this everywhere. And it should work as long as you're not using anything. If you don't provide args and you just want to make a system prompt, user prompt, and things like that, then that works. And then we just do that for every other thing. That's the user. Then that's the faux assistant, and then the input. So let's do user prompt, user message. I guess we shouldn't really do that. We just put like conversation.append. We append that message. And then here we'll just do again conversation append that. And the fake assistant prompt, do that. And append that as well. And then finally, we do the input prompt, which is the real prompt that we want it to start from. And input role as an arg. Not sure if I want to just leave it as a toggle, because essentially either you want the input to be, in this case, system message or user message. You don't want it to have like two assistant messages in a row. Yeah, so you have like an input role, or we could have input is user toggle. Let me do that because I do want to make it so that people don't have, it's less foot gunny to just force that. Input is user bool. Let's put input is system, making it optional so that if you don't specify user as the default, that makes the most sense to me, because that's mainly the one you want. So that's system. This is user. This is assistant. And then this one is system if self.input is system.value is not none. If that's none, that will be false. False. User. Makes sense to me. And then self.out messages value is equal to the conversation. Okay, so that allows us to use conversations. So just double check what that looks like. Okay, so we got format conversation, and I could do something simple like take exactly this. Actually, let's actually make something that runs. So if we do OpenAI authorize, and then OpenAI chat, and I'll maybe modify this a little bit for this test. So we'll do OpenAI authorize just from the environment. Then we have format conversation, where the system prompt is that. Then the user prompt is that. And the faux assistant prompt is that. So let's change that to 0 so that it's kind of explicit. Then the input prompt is tool output. Right, input is system is true. And we don't have any args, so that should work. And let's open this. Make system prompt, user prompt optional for now, and put conversation. And then we put if why does this have messages as a list here? Was I trying to be smart? Yeah, I was trying to be smart, and this is a terrible, terrible idea. A terrible, terrible idea. Is that what it is in the... Kind of explains something. So there was a really interesting bug that I noticed in Zybo, and that would completely explain it. But I don't think chat. Oh God, it does have it. Yeah, that's a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Let's not do that. And maybe it's a good idea, but it's probably not a good idea. Yeah, it is not a good idea. Anyway, so if self dot conversation dot value is not none, and then else then let's not use self.messages. Instead, do that. This is kind of, it's trying to be smart and user-friendly, but maybe I'll want to split this into 2 OpenAI chats. Let's see, so we got self-conversation.value, and that can just be messages, right? So messages is equal to self.conversation.value, and then that gives us these messages that we need. And then else if self dot system prompt dot value is not none. So if there's no conversation and there's a system prompt, we're going to do that. If not, we only have a user prompt and we do that. Yeah, then let's do messages equal to none. Then if messages is none, then we want to raise an exception here. No prompt. At least one prompt is required. Yeah. Anyway, then we can do the messages, and then we have our output completion. That should work. Now if we go back here, so reload that and reload this. Okay, and now what I want to do join conversations, right? Format conversations. Where's my output in format conversations? What did I do wrong? Arg, no, an out arg. Okay. And then I kind of realized something about join conversations. We probably want a more simple one, like XAI component class and conversation response. It will take the conversation and a assistant message, and then it will out conversation, out arg list. And it's just a way to just a way to add a conversation into, or like the response that we get from OpenAI back into the conversation. But still have OpenAI chat be kind of simple. So that would be ret is equal to self.conversation.value plus, and we have another list with role is assistant, content, self.assistant message.value. And self.conversation.value is equal to that. Okay, now we have this simple append. And so join conversations. Let's refresh. Add a conversation here. Reload that node there. Now we have our out messages. Okay, so let's take that there. Then the model name, let's play with fire here, cook with fire. Okay, then our conversations will be this. Max tokens, let's put this to be, I don't know, 200 tokens. Count one should be the same. Then we'll take this conversation, plug that in there, take the thing that it said, put that in there, append our conversation, and to kind of redo this thing, we probably expect it to do this. So we need to do this again. So we'll need to format conversation. So connect that here. And so format conversation should also probably have another conversation, an optional kind of previous conversation that it joins to. So the conversation is that if self.previous conversation is none, else self.previous conversation.value. That dot value is so annoying, but you need it. You either use as value or you get it from the context, one of the two. And I think this is probably better. Okay, so let's reload. Okay, so now we have a previous conversation in which we can add a system prompt, which would be tool output what do you do? Tool output whatever. It's going to say something. And that's going to be the weather. So if we just do this, that should work. And then let's print the final conversations, I think, like so. Or I guess we should do the kind of fancy thing. Go back to OpenAI chat. There we go. Do that still with GPT-4. Totally fine when there's only a couple messages. The conversation is this. Max tokens, let's keep that at 200 tokens. Okay, then we get our completion. And then let's print the completion. Won't see everything, but completion at least. So let's print whatever that is, and then finish. Okay, so let's run that and see what happens. See if I forgot something, which happens quite often. There's no tick-tocking. Fair enough. I'm here, so pip install tick-tocking. There's no tick-tocking. Tick-tocking. That should be it, right? Unless I'm doing something wrong. Okay, well, another idea for someone else to exploit if they wanted to. Okay, so OpenAI chat has no attribute messages because I forgot something, of course. Of course I did. OpenAI chat messages is not self.messages, it's this messages. And then instead of let's do that, put the completion value. I think I should also probably have, out conversation, which is an out arg of list. And then I don't need that separate thing, now that I think about it. What can you do? Anyway, so let's save. And we run this. GPT-4 does not exist. Fine. I'm not sure why. But that's fine. We got 3.5 turbo, which should be fine. Pretty sure. I think this section is really, really old. That's probably why. Okay, so let's compile and run that. Pending, formatting, another OpenAI chat. And based off of today's date of whatever, in a hypothetical scenario. Okay, thanks. Let's look at the entire conversation. So let's get rid of this. Put the conversation in here. And this thing, we don't need to reload it, but might as well reload this. Okay. And then let's run that and see what it said. Maybe we do need GPT-4. It's kind of ridiculous how dumb 3.5 is. Okay, you are Zybo, and then roll. Okay, I mean, I guess it's a little. I guess that's smart. The difference is in here, I kind of like told it the weather's in SFO or something like that. So here I would say, what is the weather like today in, I don't know, let's put Tokyo or something like that. Not in Tokyo, but I might as well do that. And in here, I'll put weather, location, date, spots, ticker, like symbol, and date, days, like that. I think that might be enough of a hint of the parameters, and then we don't need to give it more hints. Let's do that and see how that works. Okay, so it said date 0, and we got 5:30, yeah. And then the weather for Tokyo today is not within my capacity to predict because of whatever. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. GPT 3.5. I hate you. Let's get rid of these and kind of do what I was saying before. I'm sure 3.5 can figure this out. The main thing is that it needs, like I said before, it wants to be self-consistent. So we need to, let's get rid of that. Let's do another format conversation. Okay, so we can test whether or not, yeah, this would be a good thing to kind of see how important to GPT 3.5 is being self-consistent. Let's take the previous messages, put them there. And now it has said tool output 2023 530. The faux assistant prompt should be tool weather Tokyo 2023 0530. Right. The input prompt would then be this, and this is from system, so we want that to be true. Yeah, now we have these messages that will plug into the conversation. Then we'll put that there. Okay, so let's run this. Where am I missing compulsory report? Ah, yes, that's important. Very nice. I should probably change the order of these to match up with that. But, you know. Okay, so let's see how that works. Actually, no, this is not gonna work correctly. This is no longer needed. If you remember correctly, the out conversation is there. Let's put that there. Put that here. Okay, let's save. Run it. Let's see how 3.5 does if we kind of pretend to give it intelligence. Okay, content URI Zybo, date, Tokyo assistant, tool output, role assistant, weather, Tokyo that, role system, content tool output. Okay, and then it says content, the weather in Tokyo today, that is expected to be sunny with a chance of thunderstorms in the evening. That's exactly what we want. Then system tool output. Yeah, okay, so that totally worked. True. And yeah, that essentially totally worked. And then if I switch this from this message to be go to this fork, I think. Then I ask, what is the weather like tomorrow? And instead of putting that in the system prompt, that is a user prompt. Or no, not a user prompt. This previous conversation with the input prompt. Input is the user. And we're going to print out this conversation. Kind of feel like I want a pretty printed conversation now. See? Okay, so it says, what is the weather like tomorrow? And then it asked for tool date 1. And then it did tool weather day 2. So yeah, it's kind of thinking it can use two tools at once, and maybe we can do that. But it doesn't matter. When we're programming stuff, we got to, lay down the law when it does it. Okay, so that's cool. I think that is more useful for people. Looks like there were some comments. I'm using the, I'll switch the base branch again, releasing tokens. Never be smart. You'll need someone who's smarter than you to debug it, and that's true. Okay, so that seems like an interesting API addition to our OpenAI tools. Now, I guess these things should actually not be in the agent toolkit, but should actually be in the OpenAI side of things, right? Like if this thing has conversations, and this should kind of take these kind of conversations. But I do like this. This is a lot more toolable than the others. Then what that means is, okay, how do we take advantage of this in an agent. And is the word agent correct? Like, that's one of the things I don't like, is that people are throwing around the word agent incorrectly. It's just a prompt, right? Like, that's baby AGI is literally just a prompt. And yeah, there is, you could argue that there's a little bit more to it because it gets like these results and this task list deal. But to me, if an agent doesn't have like it's a memory of itself, I wouldn't call it an agent. Plus, in general, the executor agent is the only actual agent if we wanted to be pedantic about it. Because that thing is the only thing that kind of interacts with its environment. The other ones do not. But I get what they're trying to do, right? What they're trying to do is kind of simple. What do we want to do here? What do we want to do here? Kind of feel like we want to have a split between like the high level agents and the low level agents, because most people, I think, will want one component that is a whole agent thing, right? While other people, which might be only me on this entire planet, want to express this or like experiment with collaborating language models and create new kinds of agents from that. Well, the title of the stream is to really implement this kind of paper. So let's maybe think of a new agent based off of this. So tool maker prompt. Let me also restart this. So I'm going to close this and restart my Jupyter lab, or my circuits rather. Okay. Lab circuits all the time. Okay, let's relaunch that. And bin activate. Okay, get that in there. Okay, and I did that mainly so that I could actually get access to GPT-4 in this instance. Okay, so let's play with that tool maker. So let's simulate tool maker here. So for example, let's take this system prompt and put in the paper. There we go. So I think they are using, so this is an interesting thing. They're not using the system prompt. If I read this paper correctly, this is actually like a user prompt. And I kind of think it would be better if there was like a system prompt. Because then you could just say in the system prompt that, you are a kind of thing. Yeah, let's kind of do a mix of the two. So I'm going to take this out of here and say, you are a toolmaker. Toolmaker AI that creates Python functions that serve as tools that serves as tools for other AIs to use. Your Python tools should be wrapped with Python. Let's do this kind of colon dance thing. Okay, so that's given it the instruction. And I can see where there's maybe a little bit problems because we're dealing with Python. We're trying to execute this inside of Python. So you can imagine that is maybe going to be a bit of a problem. And this version that I have might not support new lines. Should be wrapped in Markdown Python code. I probably should update my circuits. What is your problem now? I should update my circuits to the one that has the support for new lines. Anyway, then the user prompt. So let's do, do they have some examples that they have here? Tool for logical deduction. Shuffle objects, tools for the Dyke language. Sort words alphabetically. Find number. So here's something that we could try. So let's start a new conversation. Actually, let's start a new conversation in regular ChatGPT. So with let's do something simple like make a list of 10 4-letter words for of food. Remember reading that didn't work so well. Let's up the ante a little bit. 15 4-letter words for food. Okay, it's not having too many problems there. What about 5-letter words? Okay, never mind. They have fixed this issue somehow. But anyway, before, like a month before or so, it was not able to do this. It would always fail. Or not always fail per se. It would just like sometimes fail. So yeah, chips, toast, steak, sauce, salsa. So I think they fixed this. They've had to have hard coded this somehow. Let's do. What's something that it needs a tool to be able to do correctly? What else? What else is there? Anyone have other ideas of things that it could? That GPT-3 always fails on, or it could use a thing. Other than like math or something like that, like something more interesting. What could it be? T3.5 can often fail. It's a hard one. I wonder if they have a short story about these in exactly 20 words. How many words is this? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so it's also probably cheating on that one too. Or just like really well fine-tuned, right? Like, I think. What else can we do that is not just a calculator? What happens if you ask it to produce some specific number of pi? If you say something like, what is the 10th number of pi? It has the answer. What is the 20th? 20th decimal place of pi is 4. If I ask the same for Google, we'll have a pi calculator thing. pi to 20 decimal places. So it's 4, but it's actually 6. I have a feeling that this kind of website is where it gets that information from. So, or no, it probably got that information from here. So it said 4 because it's counting after the decimal. So how many of these has it memorized though? But that would be a good one, right? Like we'd have a tool to do that. But I think the tool to calculate the nth decimal digit of pi is not a trivial one. Let's try that real quick. So if I did this, right, a tool that calculates the number of pi after the decimal point. Yeah, because that's not a trivial thing to write. At least I don't know any off my head. And everything it says there is on point, right? Like if you're not using like infinite precision numbers, it's not going to really work. Decimal precision is that. Okay. Nice should be in. Okay, and has this function calculate pi. It seems GPT-4 is able to do something like that. And I'm not familiar with this particular BBP formula. But yeah, let's continue. So we got the so the data set. Schedule a meeting task. That's actually a genuinely cool one to have. Okay, scroll up, please. Let's see. This find number one. I don't have the data set for that one. So let's kind of make it up. Okay, so the user string is to try to kind of merge it with what's in here. Yeah, or make a function that can calculate the nth digit of pi after the decimal point. Right, and then we aren't going to use the faux, and I think I'll put this as the input. Okay, and the input is not system, so let's get rid of that. And let's just run that through to OpenAI chat. Conversation should be GPT-4. Okay, So that should do that. And then this will output essentially the tool. If all goes well. And then there's the tool verifier prompt. Parse the question into arguments of the function. Call the function, save return value variable name ret. I'm not sure what they mean here, but like if they're implementing code to do these things, or if they're asking GPT to do these things, I think both would actually work perfectly fine. Though asking GPT to do things would probably be faster to implement. But let's try it. So let's put this here. We have our previous conversation. We don't want the previous conversation here. We're doing something else now. What we want is a system prompt of write unit test to verify the kind of the function in the question above. So the following format. And what is the 25th digit of pi after the decimal point? I don't like that. Instead of the question above of the user question. All right. We don't have the multi-line thing in this version, which makes this thing a little bit difficult. It should work. All right. These do not work. Should do some more formatting, I think. That's what it was. It was something else. You can't use single quotes for reasons. Is there a single quote in here? I lost my prompt. Anyway, let's do it this way. Write unit test verify the correctness of the function based on the user question. Then let's let it be a little bit more the user question. Okay. Then the user question is, what is the 25th digit of pi after the decimal? Okay, then we do that, and I think what we'll do is I just want to verify with print the output. Then we do the unit tests and print that. Let's see if that works. So as you remember, it kind of printed out quite a bit. And while we wait for that, let me check something on the cloud to make sure things are not down. Let's have a new window. Depending on the results in the cloud, we may or may not be able to continue. Is that working? Okay, so we did get some outputs. So let's see. Toolmaker AI, and then we get this very different algorithm. Which I've never actually heard of, so that's an interesting one. I'm gonna have to look at that one. Then the unit tests. So we import Python unit tests, find digits of pi, and then it creates this ridiculous thing. Whether or not this is accurate is something that might be interesting. But okay, so this calls find digits of pi 25 or something like that, and that's not working. But you know, that worked decently well. I think we need to incorporate the tool. Oh. Oh, and this is still GPT 3.5, so that makes sense. Okay, so let's create a tool registry type of component. Or should we just create a tool maker component that might, like, there's no real reason to split it out, I don't think. Yeah. We have an XAI component, a tool maker agent. That takes a question or task from the user, and then it runs that against the prompt to generate the function. But what if it generates more than one function? Do we want all the functions to be tools? I think not. That is interesting. We can have the current set of tools be a variable. And then it would produce a new set of tools. And then we would add those to the tool registry, or the tool belt, as I call it in other places. We have a task, then the thing will create a tool for that. We parse it. So the simple thing was like execute. Okay, so let's look at LLM call real quick. I'll get LLM call to do the thing that I want. I need to make another one. If LLM, I call it a chat call. Stir conversation. Say list temperature. Float 0.5 max tokens. You need to think about that temperature and if that's actually good for baby AGI or not. Might not be. And then the trimming. So the trimming should be smart. Essentially, the system prompt is a pretty important one that we don't want to skip. So the system prompt needs to stay there. And then the fake and I guess the algorithm here should be, okay, if everything in the conversation is above the limit of the tokens, then we want to pop off we want to pop off the messages after the system prompt. Now, whether or not we want to do those in pairs is tough because in the scheme that I'm doing, they're not in pairs, they're in triple. So we're using the system prompt, like when we have the tools. But in general, I don't think that's the case. So we could just pop off two things, then check the length. And then if that's still too long, we pop off two things and check the length. And that's really slow. I mean, TikToking is like fast-ish, but Instead, we want to kind of have the number of tokens in each conversation and then take them off. I wonder what happens if you send more stuff in the JSON than is in the API. We can find out, and that would make things easier for us. We can just like stick the number of tokens of the message in there. That's a good question. And today's stream isn't going to be for another. It won't continue for. It's not going to be a 5-hour stream. I have way too many things to do for the builders weekend. So I think I'll maybe do another 30 minutes at most. So I kind of want to do things that fit within that time. It's a very good question. Or just ignore it for now and just get on with the show, because that could work. So skipping trimming. I'll do the same while true. And let's copy this. Get rid of my custom Rakov or Llama things. And then the messages, get rid of that. And put this to conversation. Yeah, and I think we'll also stop on output. We don't care about what it thinks the code will do. We only want the code itself. Okay, so we have a chat call. And now our tool maker should have yeah, this is kind of the simple thing. So let's do tool maker system prompt. Or we don't need to do system prompt. We can do anything. So let's just do tool maker prompt conversation. Whole system content. Okay, and let's do it this way. Yeah, it's not pretty, but here's campus users. So let's do that. And there. Say you are a tool maker AI. Sets the stage for the thing. You're a tool maker AI. Please write generic Python function to solve this type of problems using only standard Python libraries. Output of the function can later be converted to the answer. Be wrapped by Python. Okay. This type of problems, I'm not sure where that's supposed to come from, but to solve the types of problems of the user. The user message. Using only standard Python libraries. Okay. That's the role. Then we have the role of user, content, okay, and let's the thing that makes this difficult is that the prompt is kind of more like a template than anything. I mean, we did it in the other place, so might as well just do it here, I guess. So let's put user and then that's the input. We have our task. So let's create the args, which is user question self.task.value. And then for every the final prompt will be role is a message role content is message content. And then that we format args for message in tool maker prompt. Then we can have the chat call. And if I can remember what it said. These things, times like this when you miss having like proper IDE. Okay, so our model will be hard-coded to GPT-4 as per the paper. Conversation will be the final prompt. Temperature will be, let's leave that as the default, 0.5. Text tokens, set it to 2000. Is that unreasonable? How many tokens would this be? Like, probably a lot, right? Like some functions will be really quick, some functions will be quite long, but 2000 tokens long, that's maybe a stretch. Where's my this? Okay, so let's, for example, copy this code. OpenAI encounter. $365 tokens and explanation before and after. Let's say it does that, and it does Python. And then after all of that, then it had this trailer. $577 tokens. Okay, well, I was kind of thinking, it's either 500 or 1,000. You probably want 1,000. Okay, so we're going to do that chat call. Then we're going to have the resulting string. Now, do we want to put this function into the context? Oh, we have a question a couple minutes ago. The website is IDE, and yeah, this is Jupyter Lab, and Jupyter Lab is like an IDE type of thing. And we have built this kind of, graphical programming environment for it. But the great thing about this programming environment is that you can right-click, open script, and you see the script of the thing, and it is all open source. Check it out on Xircuits. And right now, I am trying to make a kind of OpenAI agent tool maker. And the idea is it would create a function that solves the type of questions that the user has, and then saves that into something that the agents downstream can use. So it's like OpenAI plugins, but OpenAI is the one that's making its own plugins, or not OpenAI, but like ChatGPT makes its own plugins and then executes them for itself, type of thing. So, and then do we want to put that into the context or have that be an output thing? The problem with doing the context is you might want to have possibly like one agent that has access to create these tools, and probably another agent, well, not probably, but maybe somebody wants to make a dual agent kind of setup where the other one doesn't have the tools. And if we're using the context, then the context is a global, so both of those agents would have access to the tools, and maybe that's not what people want. The downside of having it as an output port, however, is that, yeah, let's just add it. So like out tools, which let's put that as an out arg list. So it's like some sort of list of something. or maybe it's actually like a dict, right? So the to do parse a function and put into out tools dictionary. Like if we have out tools, then we might be adding tools, so we'll probably want an in tools, right? Yeah, and then let's say you're using this. Let's refresh. We got our toolkit agents, the toolmaker agent. So essentially you would have something like a loop, right? And then in the body of the loop, you'd have the toolmaker agent. And yeah, if you wanted to, let's say you have the toolmaker agent, and then after that you would run the executor agent. And you kind of hook up the tools like that, right? And then it's like, okay, we've created those tools and those are hooked up there. But then when it does the loop again, if there's no in tools, we're going to create a new tool with just that one tool and nothing else. So the kind of correct way to do this would be to have like a set variable here and then a get variable before. But you also need to define, so maybe it's something more like this. We'd have a defined variable, then we have our loop component, then we have our tool maker, and then the body would go to the tool maker, which has a reference to the in tools. And the task maybe comes from the user, which is find the 100th digit of pi. Or it's a question, so like, what is the 100th digit of pi or something like that? And maybe it knows, and maybe it's memorized it, but regardless, now we have these out tools, which we need to set, right? So this would be like tools. The value should be just the empty dict in the beginning. Then we have our set, which should be set to the same thing as this, so tools. Let's put that up here just to have a few less crossing wires. Now that we've set this variable, then we can finally execute, and the out tools, we can still hook them up here. That's not too bad. Not too bad, though a little annoying, right? Like annoying that you have to define the variable and then set it. And not sure that it works without the get variable. I do think the define variable component will work, but I could be wrong. But I do think it will work this way. It should, in theory, work that way. If it doesn't, it's really a bug more than anything else. But isn't that annoying? The alternative is that each agent you have, so one, the other alternative is there is no in tools. It just has its own tool or its own set of tools. That after it updates, it sets out tools to be that. And yeah, then you would access that. And that wouldn't work if, I mean, it would work fine, but if you wanted to have multiple toolmaker agents that contributed to the same tool belt, right? Like they have the same, like one namespace, but multiple agents. And you wouldn't be able to do that if there was like an internal tool thing. Something about me doesn't like the components having state. Open to suggestions, but I think we don't want the components to have state. Though if they did, that would work here. And we don't need the define variable and get set variable, right? And I guess like it's not super intuitive that you do need these like variables, you know. Then we wouldn't need the in tools at all, or would we? I don't think we do, because instead of this, we would still need the out tools, but this would essentially be self dot. So it's super init, and then like self dot tools is equal to dictionary, and then we take the Python function out of that. And place it into the tools. It's a good question. We gotta just look at it, right? What we're dealing with is this. This kind of creates tools, and you set the tools to the executor agent, and it does the thing. And it will work. It's more like, what is the use cases that we prevent by making the toolmaker have state? The thing about it is that, remember, I just deleted the internal state of OpenAI chat. And I was saying, that's a terrible, terrible idea. That was a bad idea because it caused some problems in Zybo. And I completely forgot about it. It's kind of like not expected that a component has state. But it is objectively like cleaner this way, right? So it's kind of tricky. It's a little bit of a conundrum, I guess. Which is having state, is the convenience of it having state worth the bugs? Man, that's a good question. Could be a thing to ask ChatGPT, but it doesn't know enough about circuits to really provide a useful answer. I guess there is some components out there that have state in them, or like pseudo have state in them. Or, I mean, adding it to the context is perfectly fine too. With the exception of that, you might want to have multiple tool makers with different sets of tools. Or we could give the tools like a namespace. So if you don't provide a special namespace for the tool, it's it goes into the default namespace. Then you can provide another name for the tool, like for a separate tool belt. Maybe we should look at the paper, because I have the feeling the paper mentions something about that I was using sentence BERT to look up things. Let's see if it was this one or the other one. Tool user, which can be the same as the tool maker, applies the tools to handle new requests. And there's the dispatcher. Dispatcher. So essentially you have a dispatcher, you have your query, and the dispatcher decides whether we need a new tool. If we need a new tool, then the tool maker jumps in. Is there any valid use case for having different tools and different executors? You'd have like one executor here, and then you have, let's say we have this baby AGI agent, although this one doesn't have any components, but it would be like this with another, oops, no, that's the Python tool. It's like the executor agent. So you have an executor agent to another one, but you don't want to do that. For what reason would that make sense? And I guess we'll have to leave it at that cliffhanger, because it is almost to the 3-hour mark. I did want to keep this one short so I can get back to finishing things. But essentially, the Express.ai platform will likely go live before the Builders Weekend Hackathon. And so we're looking for beta testers that might want to look at it. And yeah, there's still a couple things I got to do in that sense. So I want to keep it short here so I can get to that. So yeah, I think we'll keep it here for now. And if anyone is interested in where this goes, make sure to follow me on the Twitter and on either follow me or Express.ai on Twitter, because that's where the update will go. And I mentioned in the last stream or the stream before last stream that the Hugging Face agents will be a new component library. I have broken them in some subtle way that I need to debug, so I will do that probably in the next day or two, and then publish that for reals. And yeah, I might live stream the hackathon or do a live stream during the hackathon, just depending on how much time I have at the thing. If I do that, I'll set up a schedule and announce it on Twitter. So if that does seem interesting to you, if you want to like join the hackathon in spirit or just, you know, hack over the weekend, this weekend with this stuff, but don't happen to be in Tokyo, then yeah, maybe hopping over to my live stream and doing that together would be an interesting thing. So yeah, so I look forward to the hackathon this weekend, and I'll see everyone next week or later this week. One of the two. We'll find out. So I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.